Good morning to you. Mark Seth, HurricaneTrack.com here. It is Friday, November 11th, 2022, and we're going to talk about the remnants here of Nicole, a tropical depression now impacting a very big area of the southeast and other portions of the eastern United States. The threat of some very heavy rainfall, severe weather, flooding associated with that, even maybe the possibility of some tornadoes. And then I'm going to look at the future, the next couple of weeks, hurricane season winding down, hopefully, and a few things that we're going to be looking at as we get into the off season. And then I'm going to end with something that I think needs to be pointed out regarding some of the modeling several days ago here with Nicole's legacy. All right, so let's first start off with the National Hurricane Center. There it is over northern Georgia, a depression now. Winds are 30 miles per hour. Pressure is 1,001 millibars, moving off to the north-northeast at a pretty good clip there at 23. Remember, this is just a classification. It's a name. These impacts here are what really matters the most. And you got all these different graphics from the National Hurricane Center, these key messages. And so, yeah, it is still very much a viable, disruptive, impactful entity. And just look at this one major bullet point here. Renewed river flooding on the St. Johns River is ongoing. Isolated flash, urban, and small stream flooding will be possible across the southern and central Appalachians, particularly in the Blue Ridge Mountains. That is a big problem. Rain, too much of it, flash flooding can kill people. It can destroy property, be very, very problematic. This is what the track map looks like for what's left over with the center of circulation. But those impacts are going to spread over a very large area here. Again, the heavy rain is the biggest threat, and the possibility of severe weather is also up there. So keep this in mind, all right? It is not done yet. Your risk is at least 15% here through a good deal of the spine of the Appalachians here in the Carolinas, or North Carolina specifically, eastern Tennessee as well, up into the Virginias, at least I got that right. And then it is a huge area up here through a good deal of Pennsylvania, Ohio even, and western New York. Remember what Ida did in 2021 when all that moisture went up. We had and just like Hollywood grade terrifying flooding conditions. I'm serious. If you don't remember, you should look it up and remind yourselves. New York City, parts of New Jersey, people killed in their basements as the water poured in. Again, it was like something scripted out of a movie. We're like, that can't happen. Ida made landfall down in southeast Louisiana. A few days later ends up hammering, killing more people in the northeast corridor right up here than it did down as a almost category 5 in Louisiana. So these impacts are important to understand. Let people know that might be traveling through these areas, and just stay aware of it. All right, that's the main idea here. Be weather aware no matter what the label is. And this is what it looks like on satellite here. I forgot to do the standalone animation. We'll just do that real quick here. I like it when they pop out. It just makes it centered and look a lot prettier, so we'll let it render out. And there we go. Problem solved. We'll kill the web page. I love it that Dr. Cowan has made this site so easy to navigate. I really do. All right, so here's my point. Now look at this. This is really incredible. Let's highlight it here in yellow. This fetch of moisture from almost Costa Rica and Panama coming up, feeding into Nicole, another fetch over here. Seriously, it's trying to stay alive. It is a process in the atmosphere. I mean, it's not a real living thing, but it's trying to feed this low pressure area that's sitting right in here, the center of circulation, as we pointed out on the track map from the Hurricane Center, sitting right there. But the circulation is being fed any way that it can, trying to pull moisture in to keep that process going. And so that's remarkable. It's a shame all the damage is done and the heartache that's happened down here and the death that we have seen. Absolutely, I wish that wasn't a part of these. If we were completely impenetrable from these systems, I would still cover them because they are fascinating. I mean, standing in the eye the other night, seeing this, having moisture pulled into it from thousands of miles away is an impressive part of what these systems are all about. But the bad side is they impact us, people. They impact the landscape as well. The natural world gets flooded and animals have to deal with them too, but they don't have tropical tidbits or satellites or people like me or other voices of education and experience to tell them what to do. They just rely on instinct, right? We have these tools, and we can look and we can see, that is a huge weather feature. I probably need to pay attention to that and be ready for what might be happening, all right? So just a little bit of an aside there for you, marveling at the sheer scale of this system. And you can see it too, even on the vorticity signature, a very large area of energy here over the southeast, and it's pulling some of that moisture in from far, far away. This, let's outline it in white so it shows up better, is a nice low pressure area coming through, and that's going to help to sweep all of this on out and bring a much colder pattern to the eastern part of the United States going forward after basically halfway through this coming weekend. And we've seen that. We've seen all the, use orange here, the winter storm stuff all through the upper Midwest yesterday and the day before. Well, that's all slid on out, luckily. Some record snows up here, too, in the Dakotas. But that trough's going to come in and sweep what's left of Nicole out. But first, we have this warm sector over here. Severe thunderstorm watch in yellow. There's your flash flood watches in the mountains of North Carolina and parts of Virginia. And this is indicative of cold air that's coming. Finally, we're going to completely shut the hurricane season down as far as U.S. impacts go, 99%. I mean, look, really, just to be totally, what's the word, real about it and, logical, there's never a 0% chance unless we've got a nice, dense cold air mass that's worked off the U.S. There's a non-zero chance you can get a hurricane in any month of the year. But we're getting towards the time where it's going to be 99% unlikely. Seriously. You never say never with the weather, and it's only 100% when it's happening. You take that to the bank. But yeah, this is the severe weather and the flooding threat. We can click on this map and show you what's going on. Look, tornado warnings up north of the Triangle area and northwest of Rocky Mount. Those just popped up recently, and we can look on the radar here and see exactly what's causing that. National Weather Service out of Raleigh triggering those warnings. One of those tornadoes got its origins there north of and near Durham, where I'm supposed to be tomorrow to watch a football game. We'll have to see about that. I got a lot to do today. But yeah, this is the impact scenario of what is going on with Nicole. If we scoot farther to the west, there are flash flood warnings where? Right in the mountainous areas here of North Carolina. And you can click on these and you can read about what's going on. Rainfall totals continue to pile up. 7 inches, topping 7 inches, and showers and high surges of water are expected to flow down both sides of the South Toe and the Cane rivers. The Toe, I know those rivers. They go through areas like Bakersville and Spruce Pine in North Carolina, just to name a couple of these communities. This can be very, very deadly, all right? So just really emphasizing as we work on educating people going forward, it's all about impact and understanding the totality of it, before something happens, where you can mentally prepare and physically prepare for what's coming, as it's happening, to be aware of the situation so you don't get caught off guard. And then even after the landfall, these systems are not done. They don't just stop once they hit the coast. And just keep continuing to push that, at least for the people that watch my channel and interact with me on social media and our community, that they spread the word, just a better educated public about exactly what's going on out there. There's a lot of noise and a lot of other things to distract us. The weather is very important, and we got to be ready for it. Another radar vantage point here from Dr. Mark Nissenbaum's site, and really, really impressive. The overall, and impressive in a impactful way, not like, wow, that's impressive. Look at these bands. They're coming up through eastern North Carolina. These are going to give you your severe weather threat in this warmer sector and more instability going on over there. And then the very heavy rainfall over here across the mountains, and then up here across the interior parts of the eastern U.S., as we pointed out on the impacts map there for flooding. A very, very large system. So what's next? Hopefully nothing, but is it possible that we can have more? Well, yes, it is. The water temperatures are warm enough from here south all across the Atlantic, trying to wing it here, All of that area is still plenty warm for tropical cyclone formation. Most of the Gulf of Mexico still is. Certainly the Caribbean and Southwest Atlantic are, and the deep tropics as well. So these are your actual sea surface temperatures, plenty warm for a good deal of the Atlantic basin still, and they are warmer than average almost everywhere. That is still going on. And we're going to have to watch this for only 20 days now until the official end of the season. What happens with the sea surface temperature profiles going forward, both in the Atlantic and over here in the Pacific, where we've got this La Nina going on. We're going to start watching that, especially post November 30th. I will be doing a weekly hurricane outlook and discussion as we look ahead to 2023, some of the parameters, and just keeping people engaged. And once a week, every Monday, we'll do that. And I got some other ideas I'm going to share with you later in the month for what we're going to do in winter and spring. We stay active. We don't just turn the lights off and that's it. But yes, the water temperature profile still could support tropical cyclone activity in the Atlantic basin. And make no mistake, these water temperatures way up north and out of the subtropics, even in the North Atlantic, away from the subtropics themselves, in the far reaches of the North Atlantic, that warmer than normal water coupled with a colder atmosphere above it through here, we get these colder tropopause temperatures, etc., and you get the much greater instability. Yes, you can get these cut-off lows that sit out here and move up into this area and become hurricanes, very much like Martin did. So we may get one or two more even as we go through the end of November and into December, but hopefully nothing near where any of us live, and certainly there are shipping interests out here in the open Atlantic. I, of all people, understand that, but I'm just saying, I think our impacts for land areas are getting closer and closer to single-digit probabilities, and yes, we could dig that after the big impact season we have had already. And we're basically right at normal. We're actually a little bit above normal now on the number of hurricanes. The ACE score is close to normal. It might fall in just a slight bit below the long-term average of the last 30 years or so. But by and large, an average hurricane season is pretty much what we had. It was expected to be well above average. That didn't happen. But that's just numbers and metrics. Remember that. Those were just numbers, 20 named storms, 10 hurricanes, whatever it was. And ACE scores, yes, early in the season, just as a reminder, the Euro, the ECMWF seasonal guidance in June was forecasting an ACE, an accumulated cyclone energy score, of 225. And a lot of people, myself included, thought this is going to be potentially another 2005 or 2020. I mean, the Euro had never forecast an ACE score that high. A lot of people said, well, it's probably overdoing it. So they made forecasts of ACE scores around 160, 180, and a lot of hurricanes out there, 8 to 10 hurricanes and so forth. Well, we got 8 hurricanes, and we still could get 1 or 2 more, as I just outlined, especially out over the open Atlantic. But what really mattered, of course, in the end, were 3 of those 8 hurricanes: Fiona, Ian, and Nicole. And in terms of U.S. and related impacts, then, of course, you had Lisa that made landfall down in Belize, so that's the 4th. So at least half of the hurricanes that formed had severe impacts to some areas in the Atlantic basin, at least half. Just a little bit of commentary on that for you. All right, putting it into perspective. So here is the Atlantic basin wide shot here from the GFS. There's Africa. This is the 6Z run I do. Nope, it's 12Z. I forgot. It's an hour earlier now that we're in standard time. Here's the east coast of the U.S. over here. And there's your big, giant western Atlantic ridge still sitting there, acting like it's all September out there. So what's going on over the next few days? Well, this is the vorticity signature that I like to look at to spot any areas where something might bundle together. We're at 48 hours out. Oh, by the way, let me just back up and show you where Nicole is. The energy with Nicole is right there. Loosely defined now, spread out more, because it's a depression. It's not a concentrated hurricane any longer. But nevertheless, it moves on out, gets caught in that trough, and out it goes. So what about the next few days here? Maybe let's just go out to a week and just see what develops or not. There's 96, and then finally 120. Nice and clear out there for the most part. And then finally day 6 and day 7. Luckily, no areas at all anywhere across the basin here where I see any of these little suspect areas come together. I really like this part of the atmosphere when we look for development potential. Very, very helpful. So at least, yes, for the next week or so, I get the slider to work again. There we go. You can clearly see nothing going on out there as we take Nicole, exit the pattern with it. Look at that. The energy of it does scoot across the far North Atlantic. You can still see it there getting stretched out in the jet stream. All right, this next one. I want to show something very important here, and this is not some kind of a contest of GFS versus Euro. It's just pointing out that in this situation, the GFS did a very good job of advertising what happened with Nicole. It did, and I'm going to prove it. All right, I'm going to prove it to you. This is the 12Z run way back on November the 4th. Okay, that would have been a Friday. All right, on November 4th, this is what the GFS was showing at its 12Z run. This is the atmosphere at 10 meters above ground level, and the sea level pressure as well, mean sea level pressure. So your wind speed at 10 meters and the sea level pressure. Here was our initial look at everything. There was just a little bit of energy over here and not much going on. There were people talking about it. It was showing up in the models. I was talking about it and so forth. But let's just watch. Let's watch what happens. So we move ahead, and at 24 hours, there was 48. Oh, the GFS was starting to develop some energy down there north of Puerto Rico. At 72 hours, it started to gather that energy better. It focused it, and it eventually translated into developing into a hurricane that moved right across the northern Bahamas and then making landfall there very close to, it was a little farther south on the GFS than reality, but not by much. And look what happened. It showed it at about 983, and the reality is that it made landfall around 980 or so, and then it moved across and it exited a little far south on the GFS here, and then tried to get back out over the ocean. That's so far out in time. But 156 hours from November 4th on this run, and other runs too, the GFS nailed it. It saw the pattern, it got it right, and the Euro was more largely spread out with the energy, and it took a while for it to kind of see what was happening, so to speak. And my point is, for all the people that were like, the GFS is garbage, blah, 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 you were wrong. You were just wrong. And the GFS did a great job. There will be times when the GFS will whiff on a system. And there will be times when the Euro will whiff on a system. And on this one, at the far out lead times, that's exactly what happened. And I think I can prove that to you as well if I switch over to the ECMWF at that time frame. It was similarly showing something, but it took a while. It was much more spread out over a larger area, and the pressure, it was a little bit higher. It just took a little bit longer. All right. So, the GFS did good, great. The Euro finally caught on. Both of them saw this sort of subtropical system coming, potentially turning into a more tropical hurricane. But the GFS was not garbage. All right. It did very well with it in picking it out early on, and the Euro had to kind of play catch up just a little bit. Again, it's not a competition. Mentioning it is probably but I just thought I'd throw that out there. All right. So there you go. Let's get this online for you, and let me get on getting the equipment picked up, and hopefully get back home to North Carolina late tonight. Good to have everybody helping out, tuning in, watching, sharing, commenting, etc. Don't forget, we are on Patreon. That's how we are funding all of this. It's not too late to join up and support the project. Interact with us on our own Discord. That's what this tab is over here. We have our own Discord server. You have access to our cameras, our interactive map, our documentaries, the podcast series that I produce called Stories from the Hurricane Highway. That's exclusive to our crowdfunding community on Patreon. And yeah, so check it out. Patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. Follow on Twitter as long as it's still a thing. Oh, that's a whole other story. At HurricaneTrack. And it's also on YouTube. Maybe YouTube knew what was coming when Elon bought Twitter, because YouTube has enabled the handles at HurricaneTrack on YouTube as well. You know, you can search HurricaneTrack, but you can also put that little @ thing in there, and it's at HurricaneTrack on YouTube and Twitter. So there you go. All right, you all have a great rest of your Friday. Thanks as always for giving me your time and attention. I appreciate it very much. I am Mark Sudduth at HurricaneTrack. I'll have more for you over the weekend.